रोशनी का कारवां.
This podcast is brought to you by Score Foundation.
ये है रोशनी, रोशनी, रोशनी का कारवां. रोशनी. Eyeway, ये है रोशनी का कारवां.
Hi, my name is George Abraham and welcome to Eyeway Conversations. My guest today is Annavaram from Hyderabad, and he is a faculty in the Department of Sociology in the Hyderabad Central University. And welcome, Annavaram.
Thank you very much, sir.
So, Annavaram, you've been professor or you've been part of the faculty of Hyderabad Central University for the last 12 years. You know, as a blind lecturer or professor, when you first engage with your students, what are the challenges you've had and how did you actually address them?
Before coming to Hyderabad, I also taught one of the most famous and popular college in Delhi, Hindu. I taught in Hindu for a while. That was my beginning job in the higher education. So I realized that we don't have the eye contact, but having a rapport with the students was an essential part of it. So basically, I take my attendance using Excel sheet. I don't want, my principle is being a blind, I shouldn't deprive anything of my students. I shouldn't be deprived of anything that they get from a normal teacher. So attendance is part of that. So I take an Excel sheet, call all the names. So basically I would choose the enrollment number as my title announcement. So when I keep moving down from the Excel sheet, my JAWS keeps announcing me the title row, their enrollment numbers. That's how I remember the students. Till date, many students meet me on the metros, buses and say, I am 20 SSMU 04. That's how I remember them. So,
Right.
So whenever they sit back, somebody is talking, I would immediately call up their enrollment numbers. It takes 3 or 4 classes for me to get used to their enrollment numbers and their voices. And then I also have this practice, which I think many even sighted teachers do. We give them an assignment and we also attach a viva to that assignment. So they submit 1,000 words assignment. I will call them individually, each of them, and make a viva. So we get an opportunity to talk to them personally. I also am very conscious that I'm a blind teacher. Of course, I take the slides. 90% of the time, I go with the slides. Because again, my students should not be deprived of their board work. So I can't write on the board. So I prepare my slides well before the class, take my laptop, connect it to the projector, and all these figures, facts, if they are very, very important, I will also carry a small Braille note.
You teach sociology, and how did you get interested in sociology?
That's an interesting one, but I think I should say this. I wanted to be in English literature.
Yeah.
I applied for English literature. I studied in Nizam College, which is equivalent to Hindu and Stephens in Delhi.
Yeah.
Apparently, Nizam was started way back in 1887. One of the first few English medium colleges. It has a great reputation at that time.
Yeah.
Now, I joined in that. My first preference was the modern language, English literature, history, public administration, political science. Second, something else with the, again, English literature. My third option was sociology, political science, public administration.
Yeah.
English was cancelled out. First 2 options went off.
Yeah.
And then I got into sociology.
Right.
And I found this one quite interesting. Of course, I love political science as well. But sociology was a very rare, you hardly have any employment opportunities because you don't have it in many colleges.
Yeah.
Including in Delhi.
Yeah.
So, but I thought the subject was very interesting. I got 90% throughout my undergrads.
If you know of anyone with vision impairment who needs guidance on living life with blindness, please share the Eyeway National Toll-Free Helpline number 1800-5320-469. The number is 1800-5320-469. 9.
So this state government assignment that you did, normally government jobs are based on interviews and entrance exams and so on. What was the kind of role that you played with the state government?
So this job I'm talking about, I wrote the exam, and again, because it is a 40%, anybody who has more than 40% always are eligible to apply for all the jobs. Most of them who got selected for the interview were those with 40%, 50% disability. And perhaps these clerical jobs, government also wants to take them, they are preferred. So I was the only totally blind who went up to the interview.
Yeah.
And the IAS officer said, this, you speak fairly good English, you have very good knowledge. Why do you want to come for it? I said, I insisted that I want to come. Interestingly, I wrote that exam in my first year grad. Somebody went to the court, interview happened after I finished my grads.
Yeah.
I'm saying this because had I got the job immediately after, in the usual time, I wouldn't have even completed my grads. So I got job exactly when I was in after my graduation. So I joined. But only one thing I want to say is that they were reluctant, first of all, to have me there. It's a very interesting this thing, because they have a telephone operator job where a widow was given a compensation. They call it compassionate appointment.
Yes.
Because her husband was a circle inspector. He died in a Naxal, this thing. She got a job.
Yeah.
When I joined, everybody's fear was, is he going to displace her? She doesn't know anything. She used to attend the telephone operator. What is he going to do there?
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'm not going to disturb her. I know a bit of a computer. Anyway, so then the official of that office, the second highest officer, one day came up rushing and saying, I want a leave letter to be typed.
Yeah.
There was nobody in the room. I was sitting in a very old, shabby computer, installed my JAWS, just looking at the old files, what to do with it. He came and said, Annavaram, is anybody? I want a leave letter. And I said, sorry, nobody's here. Said, I want to go to Tirupati tomorrow. Ask this clerk whenever he comes, ask him to prepare a leave letter and send it to me.
Right.
Once he went down, I wrote the letter.
Yeah.
Okay, and there is a printer. I got it printed, send it down with an attendant.
Yeah.
Asked how this letter came, who wrote it? I said, Annavaram wrote it. He was quite surprised.
Yeah.
Can Annavaram write it so well? And I just told him only my date. Okay, but he didn't have time to talk to me. He was in a rush. So he submitted his letter. Immediately after coming down from Tirupati, he's called me to his chamber.
Yeah.
We exactly want somebody who knows a bit of computer, Annavaram. He completely forgot I am blind.
Yeah.
Now that didn't matter anything to him. He said, what do you want? I said, I have to set up a computer. All these computers don't work at all. We have to set up a lab. And he said, how much it costs? I said, 2 lakhs. In government, getting 2 lakhs sanctioned would have taken 2 years.
Yeah.
He immediately wrote a check from his personal checkbook and said, you go and buy computer, whatever you do, you set up the computer lab here in the next 2 days. So I bought 2 computers, 1 printer, set up the lab. I worked there only for 2 years, but the total contracts I did by the time I came back, kept a leave and came back, was around 8,000 crores.
Right.
Apparently because the minister of that department belonged to that same district. So they huge sanctions. And there were time I was working till 1 o'clock. After a point, they forgot that I was blind.
So I just wanted to ask you also at this point of time as to what actually prompted you to come all the way to Delhi to do your MPhil and PhD, MPhil from JNU.
Yeah, I mean, a very simple fact at that point of time was Hyderabad was too boring. For me, I can't stay in one place for more than 10 years. I realized it quite late. So I came to Hyderabad in 95. 2004 was almost 10 years. I thought, no, Hyderabad has become too boring. I had to go somewhere. I wrote Hyderabad as well as JNU. Hyderabad Central University I got, but JNU, I thought Delhi I have to, it's a new place. I'm also a very ardent radio listener.
Yeah.
So most of these current affairs programs, spotlight programs, all JNU professors.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, all these professors are from JNU. I mean, it might be a good idea to go and study under some of these people. At least we'll be able to say hi to some of them. So
Yeah.
that's how JNU struck me.
So you did your MA and MPhil from JNU, and I believe that's where you met your wife. What's the story there?
Yeah, that's a quite an accidental meet. And she came from Chennai. She's though born Telugu, but she's purely a Tamil girl.
Yeah.
She even didn't know much Telugu. So we met her. I met her exactly on her birthday. A very young, fresh girl. And I said, okay. But we never got introduced ourselves as Telugu people. I said, okay, she's from English literature, the subject that I like most.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much. It was just a friendship. And I think after a point of time, we said, yeah, we like each other. We shared our lives, and we used to talk about me, and she used to talk about her. And most of our time was in library, and there are very limited computers in library, in JNU library at that point of time.
Yeah.
There are 20 people fighting for four computers.
Yeah.
So I think there wasn't much romantic story behind it, but I think we were just great friends. And at some point of time, we thought, yes, we can perhaps make that into a partnership.
So I understand that you are part of the faculty at Hyderabad Central University while she is teaching in Delhi University. So how does that work out for you?
Yes, perhaps it's quite tough. We didn't realize that it was going to be as tough as it is now, but initially both of us just were busy with our work. Of course, even now, but and somehow we wanted to shift, but it is very, very difficult. But thankfully, both of us are also avid travelers. Traveling is even before. So we used to travel a lot, and she also had the same appetite for travel. So
Yes.
we take off now and then whenever there is a possibility. We keep traveling. We take it very jolly that way. But we have been trying to manage it. Yeah, definitely it is not fun. It takes a bit of because each time for a holidays, you come for a month, it means you are displacing yourself. You have your laptop, your computer, everything, you copy it, get it here, you work for 1 month. And again, you go back to your place. And by the time, your house must have been completely different. So you get it cleaned up, set it up. It's a very different ball game altogether. She does a couple of times a year, and I do it a couple of times a year. So both of us on both of our sides. But thankfully, we have been able to manage it so far well.
Was the pandemic a good time for you guys?
Perhaps more than pandemic, I was on study leave exactly at that time. I started my study leave in July 2019, and the pandemic set in 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, so for 3 years, anyways, I was meant to be there, even if there were not to be pandemic.
Okay.
So those 3 years, and coincidentally, it happened to be a pandemic. So it was a very good time. Perhaps we're so happy that Corona came at that point of time and not any time before or after. So because we were for each other at that time. Particularly, I had a very lovely time. She has this old type quarters in Delhi University, IP College. It's a lovely place with peacocks, dogs, and monkeys.
Yeah.
Such a nice place. Yes.
So, Annavaram, you actually belong to rural Andhra Pradesh. So, why don't you tell me something about your early days in the village, and how did you actually lose your eyesight? Because I believe you were not born blind.
I was born in an island. It seems there was a huge storm sometime mid 80s.
Right.
I was a boy. We're all playing in the sand. It is a sea sand. Is very, very smooth.
Yeah.
One couldn't even recognize where it goes. So sand fell into my eyes, but my parents couldn't realize it quite early. But by 5 or 6, they started realizing that my eyeballs were running very fast. And we started going for Ayurveda treatment first, went for 2 surgeries. Unfortunately, the first surgery failed. Had
Right.
that surgery been successful, I would have had almost half of my sight.
Yeah.
So because the first, when the first surgery was failed, the doctor became quite nervous. Without a second thought, he took me back to the surgery table again within 24 hours. We were told later that this is not something you could do with a child below 16 years.
Right.
So he could have given me at least a 3-4 days gap. So as a consequence, both of them failed. I spent most of my good early childhood only behind these Ayurvedic treatment and hospitals. By then I was 10. I didn't go to school. Then we came to know, perhaps a pastor came to our village and said, there is a school, we have a brother-in-law who is a teacher there, why don't you join him? But
Right.
my grandparents were quite reluctant. They didn't join me.
Yeah.
And after a year, my grandfather passed away. And
Yeah.
I myself said, okay, I'm now pretty bored with this village. I really want to go to the school.
Yeah.
So I came to the school, joined it was a missionary school. I studied there for 4 years.
Yeah.
And after that, the school was shut.
Yeah.
Then another great confusion, we didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
A friend of mine came to Hyderabad just a year before that. He said, okay, suddenly dropped into my home during the summer vacation.
Yeah.
He said, okay, we're going Hyderabad. It's just sudden and no telephones, no letters, nothing. Said, okay, took the trunk box, came to Hyderabad, June 1995. The Hyderabad has one of the longest and very big school now. It was started by Nizam.
Yeah.
Came and the headmaster at my first site said, are you alone? I said, yes, I came alone. Said, I don't know how do I know who you are and how good you are, how bad you are? So, sorry, I can't give you that admission.
Right.
Quite a shock because my hometown was around 550 kilometers from Hyderabad.
So you had come a long way.
I've come a long way. It's just a train. You took a train.
Yeah.
A 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I didn't know really what to do. Okay.
Before you start again, I just wanted to ask you, when you came from your village to the school, you were staying in the school, but they didn't give you admission. Is that correct?
Correct. Interestingly, yeah, because it's a special blind school. When classes start in the morning,
yeah,
I used to go and sit in the 10th class.
Yeah.
Interestingly, in that school, 10th class students, teachers won't ask them anything. They're like big bosses.
Yeah.
So nobody used there asking, okay, why is he sitting here?
Right.
Therefore, they were very supportive, but once every week, the headmaster would call somebody, not me, particularly my friend, and ask, how long is your friend going to stay here? Okay. I'm going to complain. There was a point when he went on to the extent of saying, I would now complain to the police.
Okay.
That he is staying here illegally and I am not giving him admission.
So then then you went and you wrote this letter to the
district collector,
who intervened, and then
I got the admission.
Your admission is regularized. Okay.
Correct.
So
I was saying that the same headmaster.
Yeah.
Perhaps subsequently, there were a couple of incidents. Yeah. After that, he became so friendly and he promoted me almost 3 classes up and made sure that all the years I lost were recovered. And finally, I got into the right age and the right, by 15 years, I could finish, 16 years, I could finish my 10th.
To support our work with the blind and visually impaired, you can visit the donate page on our website www.scorefoundation.org.in. Please note www.scorefoundation.org.in.
I also understand that you have been involved in activism, and you started your activism right from class 8. So tell me a little bit about some of the activism that you've done over the years. Yeah.
So when I came to Hyderabad, it was quite an awful sight. There were no books. There were only 2 or 3 books. Most of them were Telugu literature books and language books. Math, science, you can't even think. So at the when I was in 8th standard, we got together, some 15, 20 people, and went to the state secretariat.
Yeah.
Radha Rathod was the joint secretary, I still remember. That lady spotted me out and said, okay, you come forward and tell me what is the problem.
Yeah.
I said, ma'am, this is the problem. We want to study. Where are the Braille books? And how can we study without this? Interestingly, he said, okay, but you have a Braille press. I said, yeah, but they're not printing. Immediately, she sanctioned a few lakh rupees. At least a few basic books were printed. That is where we started.
Yeah.
And our hostels in Hyderabad were put on notice time to time that we were going to close our hostels. That is one tactic the government always had. Many people outside actually didn't know about it. So we had to be on the roads time and again, fighting with the government. And after I joined graduation, I learned the technique. Wherever I go to the offices, I carry a Braille, PWD Act 1995 in Braille.
Right.
And depending on our discussion, I would open a particular section and say, okay, this is the section which is saying, how can you take this step? Be it reservation, be it hostel accommodation, accessibility. So I think that went on. And of course, as we grew up, the issues became more complex. Reservations, identification of posts, RPWD Act. So in both the states, we used to fight. Of course, now we start filing cases with the commissioner, perhaps demanding for the appointment of the commissioners. So issues became really complex. A large part of my time has been spent in advocacy rather than anything else. The reason is somebody has to speak. And there are very, very few people. Most of the movements happen in Delhi. If you come down to the states, there are very few people who actually are ready to fight. I try my best to do that. I've been trying for it for a long time. And I have been part of the draft rules in states, because after the RPWD Act came, what is really important is this subordinate legislation, the rules. Act is only a black-lettered dry law. And what you need is the rules and the circulars, government orders that follow.
Yeah.
So I have been part of both Telangana and Andhra, which are, of course, once upon a time, they were the same state. But thankfully, I was part of the drafting committee of both the states.
Annavaram, you also are involved with the Association of Teachers or Professors of Higher Education. Recently, I think you formed an organization. What exactly was the need for forming such an organization, and what is it actually meant to be doing?
Interestingly, you have a disability movement in India almost from 1960s and 70s.
Yeah.
All kinds of organizations are working. And most of these organizations are supported by the college lecturers. Anywhere, right. Be it in 70s or 80s, the intellectual force always came from college lecturers.
Yeah.
But in the process, they took themselves for granted. They thought probably we are there anyway in the game.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, most of our specific needs have been grossly neglected.
Right.
The needs related to teachers in higher education and UGC education ministry, they don't really pay. They pay very scanty attention because there is no separate pressure group from us.
Yeah.
We badly needed a professional group to represent our needs. So we're trying to give a push. We had a national meet last May.
Yeah.
Perhaps the Secretary of Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, Government of India was there. We're trying to give it a shape because we felt that given our number, given our specific needs, it's a time that we have an activist / professional group. It's not just activism we want to do, but we also want to help our people to grow professionally.
Thank you very much, Annavaram, for taking the time to speak with me. Wish you the very best.
Thank you very much. Such a great pleasure.
Eyeway, ये है रोशनी का कारवां.
This podcast was brought to you by Score Foundation.
ये है रोशनी, रोशनी, रोशनी का कारवां. रोशनी. Eyeway, ये है रोशनी का कारवां.